Global Transformation Astrology, GTA, with William Stickevers.
I'm not so convinced things are just going to fade off with China. We're going to see a lot more things happen with their economy. And what happens in China doesn't stay in China because we're so all systemically interconnected. The banking system, the bond markets, even if they have a different currency, they're still very much interconnected. The credit markets. So this is something we have to be watchful for. The other thing is, we have this thing, Bidenomics, right? So Bidenomics is in a nutshell. Hand out free money via unwarranted subsidies to ease the pain of stupid regulations, stroke massive inflation in the process, brag that it's working to the mainstream media who support you, and get reelected with the key message of, I'm not Trump. So people elected Biden barely for two reasons. The first being he wasn't Trump. The second being that they expected him to be a moderate. Then, instead of bringing the nation together as promised, Biden morphed into a social progressive dream candidate. That's right. Instead of being sort of like this blue dog, modest, centralist candidate, right? That's the platform that he pontificated on. He morphed into this social progressive dream candidate, stoking inflation with every decision. So voters overall are upset. They want action on the border. They want better schools. They have, they're very fearful of inflation because they're getting hit hard by it. They don't want to give up their gas stoves. They're worried about their pensions. They don't want to be forced to swap their gas engine car into a high price electric vehicle when the infrastructure isn't ready. Try and like power your vehicle. Try and drive cross country. Try and cross two states. Try and cross one state in a row with an electric vehicle. Good luck. Biden is telling people how great the Bidenomics economy is, how he's providing the most jobs, that he's the best at this and the best at that, and the economy is humming along just fine, and he's bringing inflation down at the fastest pace in history, right? So voters are starting to see through it. Other than being much more polite in his delivery, Biden may as well have said, I built the wall and Mexico paid for it. Or somehow it seems harder to lie and get away with it when you're in power than when you aren't. So here's the deal. You can run against Trump once and win if your key message is, I'm not Trump. You can do that once, but can you do it twice? Can you do it twice with nothing more than inflation and more polite delivery to back it up? And this is the issue that we need to face now, because the Democratic Party is in serious, serious trouble, which I'm going to explain in a moment. So just so you know, May 21st, 1832, 11 a.m. local time, with a national convention, the first presidential nominating convention ever held by the Democratic Party. And the reason we know this chart is effective is, first, the political group, which was once called prior, right? Democrats were first, the Democrats were initially called Republican delegates from several states. That's right, Republican delegates from the several states. That was the official name, Democratic Party, before they decided to change their name, right? So they designated their name on that day. Second, the convention had a detailed organization rules for conducting ballots. Third, it used electoral votes to decide on the ballots for each state delegation, a practice that remained until 1940. And fourth, it had the chair of each state delegation announce its nominee's name. Very similar to what happens with modern day party conventions. So, all right, we know now that's the chart. We have the time. It was actually stated 11 a.m., May 21st, 1832 in Baltimore, Maryland. What do we see? What do we see? All right. What we note here, I'm looking at the partial lunar eclipse making a direct hit later this month. Here we go. Right on the Mercury-Venus conjunction of the Democratic Party horoscope. And while that's happening, it's also hitting the nodes. So it's also hitting the nodal axis, right? So we have a Mercury-Venus T-square axis here. So it's setting that off. What's also happening at the same time is, note here that Pluto at 27 degrees, at the U.S. Pluto return degree of 27 degrees Capricorn, is right on the Neptune of the Democratic Party. So I want you to think about that. As this eclipse comes closer to culmination, we see Pluto hitting that Neptune. It's been doing that since 2020. So since 2020, Pluto has been hitting that Democratic Party Neptune. So Pluto transiting the radix Neptune in the horoscope of the Democratic Party. This is a very highly significant event, especially because we're seeing that this eclipse is hitting off this nodal axis. All right. So this is echoing themes of transformation, upheaval, renewed. It's layered with a lot of Neptune rules idealism, it rules illusion, it rules vision. So when you have Pluto, when you have transiting Pluto hitting the Democratic Neptune, it's going to influence it's going to have a seismic shift within the party's foundational philosophy. So what's happening right now is the party is undergoing a foundational philosophical shift in its principles. So the established ideals are undergoing fundamental changes, moving from a certain ideological standpoint, which was the foundational basis of the party, into a new foundational standpoint that is more aligned with the emerging demands or shifts in the global political landscape. Global. Remember, Pluto rules what? Plutocracy, right? It rules plutocracy. It rules totalitarian democracy. Neptune represents the Democratic Party's idealistic goals, its visions, its illusions, right? The ideals. And when Pluto comes along, it's testing those ideals. It's shaking it. It's bringing it under scrutiny. Pluto also deals with what? The underworld, the deep state. It deals with all of those factors that are compromising or shifting or causing a seismic shift in the original vision or a massive revisioning. So what can we see? We see the potential for scandal or revelation. So, Pluto's probing nature could expose some inconvenient truths about what's happening within the deeper aspects of the party, right? So this could be a scandal that provides clarity, and this could be a period where the party has to confront uncomfortable truths, either about its own internal workings or its own public stance, meaning it can no longer extend and pretend. And it also indicates a massive shift in power in terms of the internal, right? A new generation of leaders or the adoption of more radical or transformative policies. So keep in mind, more radical, socially radical. Neptune is socialism, socially radical and transformative policies. Also, Neptune is very much connected with international bodies, significant social groups, such as the World Economic Forum, right? So when they're talking about, we want to do a radical shift from capitalism to a new form of capitalism, right? We want to shift from a certain form of socialism to a new form of socialism. So this is part of the shift of power that's taking place here. So there's a metamorphosis in the perception of the party. There's global implications that are far-reaching that are happening. That's all going to come out during this eclipse. So Pluto hitting that Neptune during this eclipse period leading into the 2024 election season signifies a deep and transformative change touching on the party's core ideals, its internal dynamics, its public image. And this impact transit would be far-reaching and likely result in significantly altering the party landscape. So what does that exactly mean? Well, we do know a lot of the policies we hear from the World Economic Forum that was founded 50 years ago has gained more and more prominence within the leadership of the Democratic Party. If you look at the latest meeting in Portugal, the World Economic Forum meeting in Portugal, in Lisbon, Portugal, a majority of the people invited from the American body politic was key members, high-level people within the White House, congressional Democratic members, major contributors to the Democratic Party, etc. Right? Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX, he was a major, his parents and him, major contributors. operatives, non-government, non-state operatives within the Democratic Party. So you could see here that the plutocratic globalist view, right, is now shifting the beliefs, the principles, the economics. There's stakeholder capitalism. Instead of regular capitalism, it's stakeholder capitalism, right? So we're seeing here where individual liberty, private property are to disappear from this planet by 2030, according to the policies being pushed down and injected into democratically, so-called democratically elected governments. And the Democratic Party has been able to, maintain plausible deniability that, these things are happening intrinsically. We're moving in that direction regardless. There's nothing to the World Economic Forum. What are you talking about here? We're going to see that all get exposed. We're going to see somebody come out and at a very high level and basically talk about what's really going on. So, people will own nothing. Goods are either free of charge or must be lent to the state. The United States will no longer be the leading superpower, but a handful of countries will dominate. This is what all these countries, leaders, captains of industry around the world agree to. They had consensus on this. The United States will no longer be the leading superpower. So we have people in government with a party that's, who represent a party, right, that provides lip service, that gets them elected and reelected regardless, that are basically agreeing to this. So where they want collective hegemony, not U.S. hegemony. Now, I know some people here, living in France and England, that's cool, that's all. But here's what you have to remember, right? It's about centralizing power outside of national representation. That's what I really want to drive home here.
To watch the full presentation and more like this on geopolitics, the economy, and world events from an archetypal and mundane astrological perspective, join the Global Transformation Astrology membership. Go to gta.williamstickevers.com. Become a GTA member today.